Classic WoW is right around the corner, and whether you're a hardened veteran from back in the day, or someone who's never played the game before, here's a quick survival guide on how to better weather the harsh worlds of Azeroth. In Classic WoW, you will find yourself either running out of mana consistently, or getting your ass handed to you consistently, at which point you will either need to have plenty of food and water on hand. Know your character's limits. In the early game, you can most likely handle one mob at a time quite comfortably, but add a second or even a third into the mix and it may just be a death sentence for you. Tags are not shared in Classic World of WarCraft, unless you happen to be in the same group as the person who tagged the mob to begin with. Otherwise, the mob will appear as grey to you and you will not get loot or credit for the kill. So when possible, group up for quest kills that become choke points during your adventure. And also, it would help to just group up while questing out in the world in general, as it'll make things easier for you to complete your quests. Get used to seeing low quality gear on your character. You may not get your first piece of equipment of green quality or higher with actual stats on it until you're possibly around level 10. And also, some slots will not be available to you for quite a while, as you won't receive your first ring until maybe around level 15, your first amulet at around level 20, trinkets at 25, and your first piece of headgear at level 30. Professions will actually be of great assistance to you during your adventuring in the world of Azeroth. Even the secondary professions can provide quite a benefit in Classic WoW. Cooking, of course, can provide you with some good buffs and a surplus of food from the ingredients that you find off random mobs you kill in the world. First aid will be returning then, of course, which will be a good alternative to stopping to eat every so often, and will also have other benefits like, say, the ability to remove poison and disease, etc. And fishing can be a great benefit to the cooking skill, or you could also just put whatever you find on the auction hall, as people aren't always in the mood to sit back and do some fishing, and you may be able to take advantage of that. The primary professions can be quite a benefit to you as well while you're leveling up. You may find yourself at level 30 stuck with level 12 green bracers, so you may be able to craft yourself an upgrade because RNGesus hasn't been very kind to you lately. Maybe you want to craft something that boosts your stats for a while, like a potion or an elixir or even a blacksmithing whetstone for your weapon. There's all sorts of benefits to be had. And these professions, keep in mind, they feed heavily off of each other, and I'm not just referring to alchemy and herbalism, for example. Take engineering, which can require parts from multiple professions, such as tailoring, leatherworking, blacksmithing, enchanting. You may have to play the auction hall quite a bit, or maybe you'll just take gathering professions and just become a baron selling everything on the auction hall yourself. In Classic WoW, your options for races and classes will be more limited, and some races will be far more limited in what they can select now. For example, humans cannot be hunters anymore, orcs cannot be mages, etc., and paladins will be alliance only, and shaman will be horde only. Get used to running around on foot for quite a while. Your first mount won't be available until level 40, and even then you might not be able to afford it. Flight paths will also be few and far between again, with probably only about one per zone. And the same could be said for the graveyards, with just one per zone. If you die on the far west side of a zone, but the graveyard is situated in the east, well, you're going to have to corpse run the whole way back. Get used to being broke all the time. Quests don't award as much gold as you'll be used to, and you'll have to train every rank of every skill that you want to purchase. You'll have to spend money on your professions, the food and water you plan on buying unless you're a mage, etc. You might not be able to afford all the skills once you level up, so you may have to pick and choose which ones are most important to you at the time. Beware pretty much any body of water once you've acquired your mount, as it's very easy to be dismounted in even somewhat shallow bodies of water. Your breath meter will also start to deplete a lot faster than you're used to. Your character will also be ugly, and I'm not just talking about the old character models. Your gear will most likely look very mismatched, and in some cases of, let's say, warriors, you might even be wearing some leather pieces, some mail pieces, some plate pieces, just to make up the difference with the stats you desire. Warriors and paladins will not be able to wear plate mail until level 40 when they can receive the training for it. And in the case of hunters and shaman, they won't be able to wear mail until level 40, when they also receive the training for it. This means that prior to level 40, you won't really find any plate gear out in the world. Although the mail gear that does exist will have varied stats like strength and agility. It'll be a bit of a hodgepodge of some pretty weird gear combinations. Keys will be very useful in Classic WoW, as many are requirements just to get into some essential areas, and others unlock some very, very helpful shortcuts. You won't be able to enter the shortcuts to some raids, or enter some raids at all, unless you get yourself attuned first. In order to do this, you'll have to go through a series of quests for some of these, and you may need to check with your guild on how to do that, or check some websites like Wowhead. Be aware of certain hotspots for world PvP, such as South Shore Tarn Mill, or pretty much anywhere in Stranglethorn Vale. While it's the norm on a PvP server, these areas may flare up heavily, and on a non-PvP server, well, these areas tend to become PvP just from people flagging themselves to go and kill the opposing faction. Mages will be everyone's best friend, with all their services for food, water, and portals. Be nice, tip well. Get used to having next to zero bag space, as extra bags will be hard to find in early game, and they'll have very small sizes. Even things like your mount will have to be stored in your pack, and if you're a hunter or a warlock, God help you, you gotta hold all your ammo and your soul shards. You may find yourself needing to strategize better in Classic WoW compared to retail. You may need to utilize your toolkit a lot more, such as CCing with either stuns or polymorphs, etc. And in some cases there may be some very large groups, and some enemies may be prone to running away in fear once they hit low health and going and grabbing new groups. So you may want to consider line of sight pulling, especially when in a dungeon. There won't be a dungeon finder or an LFR, so get yourself into chat and start asking for a group or see who's advertising for one. It's a very social game as well, as the chat channels get used quite frequently for finding groups or exchanging services. Your character's name will also carry a reputation with it. So if you find yourself being a bit of an asshole or a loot ninja, well, people may be not so inclined to group with you, as word of mouth will start to spread on your deeds. Same can be said for the good deeds though. If you're a really awesome tank or healer, if you are just a really awesome, nice person in general, word of mouth will carry, and, well, people will want to group with you more often. There will be no more map markers on your quest for where you need to go to complete it, and quest items will not shimmer to let you know that it is a quest item. You will find yourself having to mouse over a lot of items to see if it's the quest item you need or not. You'll also find yourself having to actually read your quest text to figure out where you need to go and what you need to do. New quests that you have yet to pick up will not be marked on your minimap, regardless of the quest giver being indoors or outdoors, so that means that you may have to actually find yourself exploring a lot of places you might not have thought to explore, because there may be an NPC inside with a quest for you. Baron's Chat! A lot of the quests you'll pick up will expect you to traverse the world quite a bit. A lot of quests will not be isolated to just one or two zones nearby each other. You may pick up a quest in low-level Westfall that next takes you to another zone that's also low-level, but all of a sudden the next part of the quest chain is 10 levels higher and it expects you to go to a completely different continent. You never know what you're going to get with vanilla WoW quests. Some dungeons will be massive in scope, as the Temple of Atal Hakar will be renewed to its original size, and Blackrock Depths has always been massive, but it'll have a shit ton of quests linked to it. Stat sticks will also be making a return to the game. For example, warriors will be able to equip a ranged weapon again alongside their main hand and offhand. This is just functionally to give them some bonus stats, whereas other races that can't use ranged weapons, like paladins and druids and shaman, etc., they'll have relic slots, where they'll be able to find class-specific items for their stat sticks. Almost everything is a hunter weapon. All of the primary stats are actually useful in some way to every single class. A warrior and a rogue could both benefit from having strength, and they could both benefit from having agility. Intellect would actually increase the rate at which your weapon skills would rank up as you used them. Elemental resistance gear will be making a comeback as well. This is more applicable to the endgame experience with raiding than it is to your leveling up experience, as a lot of endgame raids, say Molten Core, will require a lot of resistance, in this case, towards fire. Some stats will actually govern how often you hit and miss your opponent. There's actually a decently high chance in early game that you'll be missing plenty of melee attacks, or plenty of enemies will be resisting the spell you just casted them. You'll actually have to level up your skills with the different types of weapons that your character can use again. Let's say you've been using an axe to level up the entirety of the game up until level 15, and you picked up a mace suddenly that's a good upgrade, and you switch to that. You may find yourself missing your attacks very, very frequently until you've actually leveled up your skill with that weapon enough. Priest racials will also be making a return. These are very unique and interesting, some very useless, and some very, very mandatory for raiding. Watch out for those sneaky devil sores. Hunters will once again use mana as their resource pool, and they'll actually have to keep the appropriate food on them at all times to keep their pet happy, because their pet being happy actually increases the damage that they deal, whereas if they're unhappy, it'll actually decrease the damage they deal, and there's a chance that they'll abandon you or outright turn on you and attack you. Loot isn't automatically decided and distributed right to you based on an RNG system in the game. Loot will just appear on the corpse, and depending on your loot system that you have enabled, you can either be prone to loot ninjas, just walking up and taking it from right under your nose, or you can have a system in place like Master Loot or Greed and Need. New skills and new ranks of skills are not automatically added onto your action bar when you learn them. You have to manually go into your spellbook and apply it to your action bars yourself. While that wasn't a definitive list, I hope everyone found it useful, or at least got to experience a little bit of nostalgia again before the game comes out. And when it does come out, I hope everyone has a great time playing and enjoys themselves. Until next time everyone, take care, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe, it would help me out quite a bit.